if you feel like that and you truly believe that you have infinite inherent value, and you do breath work and you're using positive mantras, breathing in and exhaling the negative mantras, just doing those, that'll change your life.
I want to jump right into the content because, the more and more I study your career, the more and more inspired I am that I've probably been working out and not achieving my fitness goals because I'm doing it all wrong. Why are people not actually achieving many of their goals?
Well, the reason why many people aren't achieving their goals is for a couple big reasons. One is it's just not matched. Their exercise plan is not matched to them. So, so many people, because of shame, they get into exercise. Like, I want to decrease this body fat. I'm not happy with the way I look. I'm not. And so they go with it with shame, and it's all based on emotion, and they try to overtrain. So it ends up being too difficult for them. And what ends up happening, Stephen, is they lose some of that excess pain, let's call it that excess pain. And once they lose that pain, that 20 pounds, the motivation goes away, and then they quit, or maybe even way before then, because they think it's way too hard. They're trying to push themselves too hard. So really, it's not having what we call at the Fitness Doctor an optimal physiological dosage. Now that sounds really complex, but what we're really saying is just perfectly matched exercise plan to the individual.
No, I like that a lot. I'm a gym rat by nature. I always have been historically. A good friend of mine's got me doing DDPY yoga now, which has been kind of fun, So I'm trying a lot of new things. So this whole industry, this new level of thinking is really inspiring to me, because I am the overtrained guy. I'm the one that goes into the gym. I'll work till failure, and then I still won't be happy. So I'll wait 2 days and I'll just do it again, which means the muscle never really recovers. My flexibility began to be more and more limited. I began dropping weight and cutting down in a variety of places, none of which were the primary ones that I was trying to locate and stuff, and I've tried intermittent fasting. I've tried all these different things to try to showcase, or not a showcase, but try to showcase what my expectation is. But, you have this concept called negative, how do you negative, not negative. It's not a negative result. It's negative training that you brought up. I thought
negative result.
Right? Negative result. It totally like flipped my script. So break down negative result for everybody.
Yeah. So what most people don't realize, which is why they see someone buff or super fit and like, oh, are you in the gym 4 hours a day? And it's like, well, no, if they're in the gym 4 hours a day, they'd be way overtrained. And of course, there's some athletes who do exercise that much. But, here's the thing is exercise is literally a damage to your body. That's what exercise does. Your body's in balance. It's producing fine. We're sitting here having a conversation. If I get up and start running, then things are going to get completely out of balance. My body's going to be under load and stress. I'm drawing in much more oxygen. I'm producing all this waste product and my fuels. My cells are getting totally stressed out, and my tissues are beginning to break down. And then the immune system actually creates some inflammation after that. So there's all this breakdown process. So what people, I think, really need to understand in terms of getting results from exercise is it starts with negative results. So you better be careful of how much negative results and what type of negative results you start with, because you can get more negative results from exercise than positive. And that's what people don't really talk about.
Well, I was going to say that on that point, one of the things that even I'm struggling to fully comprehend all the way is, we've been taught this entire time that, you're supposed to break down muscle. Yeah, you're supposed to do this. Yeah. And so it's supposed to be part of the process. But when I hear you talk about it with all your experience and everything you've been studying for what feels like a decade or more, one of the things you're telling me now is like 3 decades. He says 3 decades, right? Is this understanding that you can choose the negative result that you're willing to kind of use?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, okay, so here's the thing. Let's take so you listening to the show, regardless of where you're at in your fitness level, you're going to fall in one of 3 categories. Either you're a beginner, so you have 0 months to about 6 months of exercise experience. And, this could be true for like aerobic. Maybe you only do aerobic and you don't do weights, or you only do weights and you don't do aerobic. So whatever category of exercise you're doing, you have 0 to 6 months of that exercise. Intermediate's about 6 to 18 months. And then advanced is going to be beyond 18 months. So depending on where you're at, your body has 3 different phases or 3 different capabilities of outputting energy and performing. Okay. So the first phase is what we call adaptation phase. And so what that means is you have this window where, you know, you're not going to really get much negative results. It's a level of exercise that your body's so used to doing that it's not really going to break down much. It's a very small amount of stimulus. So as a beginner, that might be getting up and going to the fridge, right? As an intermediate, that might be doing a light walk to jog. And as an advanced, that might be doing, you know, 10 minutes of running. Okay. So that's adaptation. Then we have performance capacity. So first we got that adaptation zone. Next, we got performance capacity. So that's like, you know, at the end of performance capacity is, you know, the maximum amount you could do, right? So for a beginner, let's say they can run 5 minutes before they're totally exhausted. Intermediate, they can run 20 minutes before they're totally exhausted. And advanced, maybe 40, 50 minutes before they're totally exhausted. So in this case, then what we have last is fatigue state training. So the fatigue state is you're beyond performance capacity. And now you're getting into just full breakdown. Negative results have now, you know, if we look at negative results on like a graph, it's starting to come up like this. Positive results peak. And as you get to your performance, that negative results line passes. Now we're going into that fatigue state training, and fatigue state training, you're just breaking down. You're just in sheer breakdown. And at the end of fatigue state, you go unconscious. You die. You can have extreme traumatic. So when you start thinking about like putting exercise load and stress on those continuums, then you start to realize like, oh, okay, so how do I get the optimal results from exercise? So it's typically by training between in that adaptation and under your performance capacity. But you think about that, most people go to the gym, right? And like I've been in the gym before, and there's trainers with clients. And I asked, and I see them doing force negatives, which is where they like push down the bar, right? They push the bar while doing a curl and make the negative or the dropping of the weight even heavier. And I asked the guy, hey, how long have you been training for? Oh, a couple of weeks. The client has been training for a couple. So we're going into fatigue state training in this example.
Like straight out of the gate.
Yeah. And you know, so that's a horrible example. An amazing example would be like the Russians. So the Russian wrestlers are known, like, right, Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? He's an amazing example, one of the best in my mind UFC fighter ever, pound for pound. So and Russian wrestlers, and what they do is they typically stay in adaptation and under that performance capacity, whereas the American wrestlers are always pushing the envelope and kind of go way too far and go into the overtraining state. And this is talked about a lot in the athlete world, whereas, you know, too much of those negative results, too much overtraining is actually going to impede your results. So now you think about the normal person. Now you listening to this podcast, you're probably not Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? You're probably some below that, right?
Yeah.
So what should you do? Well, the first thing I'll tell you is you shouldn't, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. So as a beginner, just because you can go in and do 8 different exercises and all these sets and do no, just go in there and find your comfort zone. So you should literally start exercise with your comfort zone. So now, Stephen, we're tying back to what you said in the beginning, which is, you know, where do you think people go wrong? Where do you think they go wrong with their neck? And this, because you don't have to go that far out of your comfort zone. You only need 10% outside of your comfort zone. Now, if you play that game for months and months, you're going to always have amazing results. And then once in a while, you should even back off from there. So if you do that, you're going to have amazing, you're going to enjoy your exercise. It's never going to be too much, you know?
I mean, does it seem like the reason we're not able to operate or in that optimum zone is because of impatience, maybe? Like we're trying to get to our results quicker than they actually going to take shape. Because, you know, one of the things that I've heard a lot, especially when I was listening to some of your content as relates to jujitsu specifically, is, you know, a guy that's like super built and rocking guns everywhere, and he gets on the mat and he gets taken by a guy half his size in a heartbeat because of the way they're training. But it seems like the guy that went into the gym to get cock diesel thinks that that's the appearance of strength, you know, not realizing that strength can be used against them. Right. So, what keeps us from even searching for, I mean, I wouldn't even think that most people even understand what our optimal zone is. Like, cause it seems like it would be different for everybody. Correct?
Yeah. So let's make it really simple now. That beginner, the adaptation is going to be about 30% effort. What do I mean by effort? So if you lift a weight and it feels like, oh, I only expend 30% of my effort to do this, that's adaptation for a beginner.
Okay.
You, as an intermediate, you grow a ton. You grow all the way to about 60%, would be about the end of the adaptation zone.
Yeah.
And as an advanced, you're only going up another 10%. So you think about like going out for a walk or a run, like what percentage of effort? If you're a beginner, you should only spend about 30 to 40 to 50% effort is going to be your maximum results, where you get the optimal positive results. You're not overtraining your body. You're not wearing your body down too much, you know, because here's the thing that I'm not saying is when you do that, now you're going to enjoy it and you're going to be so consistent that you might even work out twice a day. And you're going to absolutely love physical activity, and you're not going to end up so pain and dysfunctional and stiff and all these other things that happen that end up setting a plateau and pushing you backwards.
Yeah.
So because of the consistency, then you get greater result, because what the science says is this, is that, you know, the stimulus or that bout of exercise, even small or moderate, that's the huge stimulus, right? That's just doing it is the huge, like, let's take Nike, right? Just doing it is that's where you get the huge results. Overdoing it is not where you get the huge, it's the consistency. It's the consistency that produces the results, you know, and that's in the clinical research. What's happened is they look at people that are just active throughout the day. And the interesting thing, health wise, people who are active out throughout the day get much better health results than gym rats. Much better.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, we got a live event facility here in Raleigh, and, you know, I can get my steps in just by walking around the facility. It's because it's, you know, about 27,000 square feet. And it wasn't that long ago, my son's fiance came to visit us down from Charlotte, and she had just happened to do leg day, like before she popped down here. She literally could not walk for 3 straight days, including around this facility or around the house. Like it almost incapacitated her. And so I guess that would be the definition of overtraining, right? And just being impatient to get a result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you're getting paid millions of dollars to play in the NFL or UFC fighter or something, you know, there's a place for that, because your sport asks you and requires you to function at that level in the cage or on the football field. But most of us, that's not the story. And if we were going to talk about, that's another conversation. So then there's minimal dosing of that extreme, even those guys, right? I have a bunch of friends who are professional MMA fighters. And the best way to do that, they have short little bouts of extreme intensity, 2 weeks at a time, then they back off, 1 week at a time, then they back off a little bit. It's not, you know, it's not what people think it would be. So, you know, if you're not a pro athlete, then you have no reason, like, you want to feel amazing, have great energy, make millions of dollars, and like be there for your family and be super functional, go on vacation and like enjoy life, right? All the things that mean for you to enjoy life, then exercise in a way that matches your physical activity goals, right? So, but I think most people don't do that, right?
Well, I think we're all trying to compete with something that we can't even articulate what we're competing for. Maybe it's the guy and the girl in the gym. Maybe it's, you know, I'm an aspiring MMA fighter, so I need to train like my favorite person I aspire to be, but they don't realize that person's doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. All they see is the video of them, you know, doing the kicks, doing the, you know, gi ties and all kinds of stuff. I think it's really interesting, you know, that your approach is so holistic, because I don't think people go through the process of breaking it down the way you do, which is one of the reasons why, you know, the fitness doctor has become so successful. I want to pivot for just a second, because I think there's something that I haven't heard many people talk about, that I know you talk about and you got a lot of insight on, which is the importance of posture. Right? Most of us are not paying any attention to our posture. How does our posture carry our physiology, and how does that shape us, either negatively or positively?
So the posture is huge. And here's the thing. Let's take your body and fitness and health and all these things. Let's put it, there's 2 categories. One is your body mechanics, right? So like the posture, the position you're in, that's totally your mechanics, right? That's your mechanical alignment and function of your body. Then there's the physiology. That's like how your cells are processing and producing energy, and even how big your muscles are to be able to withstand the metabolic stress you put with strength training and that type of thing. So there's 2 areas, mechanical and physiological. Well, think about this. To optimize the physiology, which is really what a lot of us are after, you have to go through a filter or system of mechanics first. So in other words, you have to use your body's mechanics and motion and muscle usage to have an effect on the physiology. But here's what happens is people don't pay enough attention to their posture, to their alignment, to their body, and then they end up with negative results in the form of dysfunction, in the form of pain, stiffness, and injuries, and all these type of things as they start to really push that physical fitness envelope, and or just overtraining or having burnout or affecting their sleep because of the amount that they're training. So if you use your body's mechanics, starting in posture is one of those things. I think most people think about posture, it's like the position of your spine and aligned and how you're holding your head, your shoulders. So, if you don't have optimal posture and you start really training, you're going to have a body that's out of alignment. And just like any mechanical structure, if you try to put a bunch of load and stress and force on a misaligned mechanical structure, that thing's going to break down. In this case, that thing is you, right? And so as you break down, then guess what grows? Your can't do list. And as your can't do list grows, then you're getting older. And then what happens is you're not able to be as functional mechanically as you age. And that is what most people who are actually fit actually bites them in the butt, is that their mechanics start to really become dysfunctional, even though they want to take action in fitness.
My grandmother was 4'11" her entire life until about the last decade or so of her life. And by that time that she passed away, she was 4'5", because she came further and further being hunched over. And then I also had this image of people that I've worked out with that didn't have great posture. They worked out like crazy, built a lot of solid muscle, which I would assume reinforced their negative posture, meaning their poor posture. And as a result, they kind of walk kind of like this, like they're jacked, right? But they kind of look like they've got like stuff in their back kind of holding over. And, that's why I wanted to hit on that so much, because I feel like it's something that I'm constantly trying to keep in track of. I'm constantly like even replacing my tennis shoes to make sure I've got good soles on my feet, to make sure I'm not getting, I don't know about you, but I've worn shoes down so far where you almost have a slant on a shoe sole,
Right.
And I finally realized that the more I walked on shoes like that, the more my back would hurt. So then I got to where I was replacing my shoes about every 4 or 5, 6 months, and then my posture began to stabilize. And then I started doing lower resistance style workout, which I know that we've been talking a little about. And I actually found I got stronger with the lower resistance than I was when I was lifting, probably 30% or 40% heavier weight.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Well, so did you play sports in high school, or what was
I've played a few sports. I've played baseball, soccer. Well, depending on what country you're in, soccer here, football in the other places. Right. I dabbled in MMA stuff for a little bit, for a hot minute. I was a striker, not a jujitsu guy. And I kept getting my butt handed to me by jujitsu people. So I kind of pushed myself out, and then I did some hockey, some ice hockey. So those are kind of my genres of kind of like sports entertainment, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And it's interesting that you figured that out with the feet and the shoes, because our mechanics start in our feet, really, because most things that we're doing in some form of standing position, and we're walking all the time. Everything we're doing, a lot of it requires, the feet first. So, the feet, depending on the positioning of the feet, then that's going to affect the ankle, affect the knee and the hip, right? It's like the old song, the knee bones connected to the hip bone, right? So,
that's awesome.
So and the feet really start. And what I suggest is, so if people have like hard floors in their house, it might not work too well to just go straight barefoot, but because it's kind of can beat up the feet because they're not adapted to it, right? Everything you do has this level of adaptation, whether you're adapted to it or not. So what I do suggest is people can walk on a mat, walk in sand, walk on carpet, but use your feet without that artificial device called a shoe, because then it starts to really strengthen the feet, and then that changes and improves the mechanics up the chain. So, I'm a big fan of wearing barefoot shoes. So for example, especially like if you're doing a leg day at the gym and you're not going to be running on the treadmill or doing ballistic plyometric type motion, it's a great idea to go to the gym wearing barefoot shoes, because you're really going to strengthen your feet and that'll strengthen your entire nervous system. The other thing that happens is we have two different forms of nervous system in terms of motor control or movement and action, right? We have the sensory or the afferent, so sensing the positioning and the alignment and the load and all these things. And then we have the motor action, so sensing and then coming back to the motor action. Well, if you're not wearing a shoe, then your feet can sense better. And when your feet sense better, then they're able to have better muscle control and usage in the motor action. And so, that's why it's so important to exercise legs sometimes with barefoot or in barefoot shoes. And the same thing goes for your hands. It's actually a good idea to use your hands when you're weight training to like put on your pelvis and control, touch your shoulder while you're moving, because our hands have the greatest sensory perception out of anywhere in our whole entire body. So that adds motor control.
I never would have thought of that at all. It's that's so interesting. I'll have to get me some of the weird shoes. Subconsciously I'll probably keep my shoes on because I'm 5'5", so I need the extra inch, right? Kind of thing. But no, I've never thought about that. I discovered that being barefoot assisted with my balance quite a bit. Like when I started doing some of the DDPY yoga stuff that I've done with some friend friends, and I learned that my balance is getting better because I'm largely barefoot. I didn't correlate the two until you just actually brought that up as a whole. So that's really cool. We've talked a little bit about muscle and like exertion. We've talked about posture. Let me ask it this way. How important is breath work?
Oh, it's crazily important. It's crazily. It's an 11. It's an 11 on a 1 to 10.
Wow. That's so surprising. Cause I feel like no one, this is one of those things that no one's paying attention to. They assume because they're living, they're breathing. But I know that when I'm under considerable stress, I will actually pull back and literally just breathe in deep and breathe out deep. I've also discovered, I have a deviated septum on one side of my nose. And at times it's difficult for me to breathe, in its truest form. And as a result, I've had to take more time to control how I breathe. And I get a semblance of, these are the two things I feel. All right. So number one thing I feel is I feel a greater sense of focus and clarity if I just sit still and kind of like, I also feel like my heart rate comes down. I'm not wearing a heart rate monitor to kind of justify that, but I feel like my heart rate stabilizes and comes down. And as a result, I'm put into a place of peaceful performance, I guess is the best way to explain it. Is there science to back up what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Here's the thing is like, most of us had some kind of trauma from childhood, right? Whether you had a Marine Corps drill instructor father like I did growing up, or
me too.
You did?
My dad was a Marine, Semper Fi.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So whether you had that, or whether whether your parent was a doctor and expected you to like do certain things, and you felt shame, maybe you didn't want to go, whatever your things are, we all have trauma from childhood, and we all live in this world where mostly it's not that physical in our daily life. It's a lot of mental stress, which causes we have two forms of the autonomic nervous system, which is really the kind of the nervous part of the nervous system that controls what state you're in. In other words, whether you're active or whether you're resting. Okay. And so you have the sympathetic nervous system. And so things like trauma, PTSD, anything that's really caused you a negative experience in life, it can activate the sympathetic nervous system. And then what happens is we form our thoughts in neuroassociations through the nervous system and the brain, forming these memory systems. And then when we go through daily levels of stress, then what ends up happening is we trigger into those certain thoughts, and then that brings up maybe shame we felt from childhood or all these different things. And that can start to build. So if we're not careful and unfold and start taking off the layers of the onion, that's why in the US and in other developed countries, we have anxiety and depression is so high
Yeah.
because people aren't dealing with it. And then they're looking for escapes in the form of drugs, alcohol,
Yeah. Self-medication.
workaholism.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anything, sex, whatever it might be. So breath work. So if we simply breathe and relax and process, we become more mindful, and that gives us a moment to be more mindful in that our ego voice in our head and
Yeah.
all those thoughts and all those motions circling, and what I call release the negative energy and recharge your superpowers battery, because you
Yeah.
all have superpowers. And the only way you're going to do that is to get in touch with yourself. And there's an amazing, doing breath work is an amazing time to do that. And so the way that psychology and breath work ties in with physical fitness is oftentimes that pain that you might feel from a workout is literally just your body receiving the exercise as trauma. So you went to do a good workout, but because you're stressed and stuff, the science actually shows that if you're really stressed, you shouldn't go and do a crazy hard extreme workout. You should actually be much less. It's actually, there's higher risk of heart attack and all kinds of stuff. You go and try to really drive yourself when you're super stressed. But if you go and do like moderate activity, you do breath work, you start to release that negative energy, you bring down that sympathetic fight or flight type of tone of the nervous system, and you start to relax.
Yeah.
And now everything becomes better, including exercise.
I love it. I love it. It's funny. I was thinking about the subconscious side, or the trauma side. How much of that is subconscious and how much of that is conscious? Like, how do we realize we're actually going in and out of that?
Yeah, no, I think most people do not, and like one of my favorite books, I've been a personal development junkie for 20 plus years. And my favorite of all time is Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. That's, if you have never gone through that, that's an amazing resource.
So are there any techniques or any tactical ways in which we can use breath work to begin to release some of the things that maybe are kind of hidden in our subconscious that you've seen that's been successful?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I see is anything that you're wanting to achieve. So whether maybe you're wanting to have a better relationship with your spouse. If you want to have a better relationship with your spouse, then what are the affirmations you want to tell yourself? So, maybe you have trouble connecting. Maybe you have trouble being forgiving, maybe whatever the issue is. So what you want to do is say a positive mantra. You can say it out loud or to yourself, and you breathe in that positive mantra and you visualize breathing in that positive mantra. And then there's always something that's like, yeah, but my dad was always an a-hole,
Yeah.
an a-hole to me or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So then how am I going to be able, so whatever that negative, then you exhale the negative mantra. So whatever you're wanting to achieve in your life, and the mantra you want to absorb, like an affirmation, you say it, you breathe it in, and then you exhale this process is like very simple, but it's crazily beneficial.
Yeah.
That's one thing I see that's so helpful. And I think, and I think the big thing too, that I've seen time and time, because I've studied psychology quite heavily too, and I've been very invested in that process as well. And so what happens is, I think we all start to see, especially in the US, there's a lot of disconnect and people put up walls, and that's the reason why I think they probably drive for certain levels of fitness. Like, let me build my a lot of
to show I'm more powerful to keep myself from getting injured kind of thing.
Yeah. Like a lot of buff guys are just, scared little boys in gorilla suits, you know what I'm saying? And so they're building that shell of wall around them. And the thing is look, you have infinite inherent value. You have infinite inherent value.
Amen.
And we're all part of the same universe, man. So, if you feel like that and you truly believe that you have infinite inherent value, and you do breath work and you're using positive mantras, breathing in and exhaling the negative mantras, just doing those, that'll change your life. Like, that'll literally change your internal environment, which then changes your external environment.
Yeah. I believe in many ways, life is a series of programming others are doing, or your environment's doing to you. We talked about that growing kind of like on the early onset, as a child, you're not really choosing your parents. You're not choosing your environment. You're not choosing the city or the cultural the various things you may have to grow up in and around. And, it never fails that we use certain tonalities or slang or accents or whatever as a relate kind of as we're coming up. And then I had an epiphany about a decade ago that at any given time we're programming, like we're being programmed. Okay. The choice is, are you programming yourself or are you letting your experiences program you? And I kind of was like, I was pondering that and pondering that and pondering that. And I'm so glad you brought up the example of the tactical of the breath work, because I've found that that's been very successful for me. I don't know how much you know about my backstory, but I've had a tremendous amount of difficulty growing up, from homelessness to suicide attempt to all kinds of stuff growing up to get to this place in life. And so much of making that ultimate transition came down to how I was being programmed on a regular basis. Was I believing what I refer to as life lies? Was I believing my limitations? And then if I was, how did I separate that? And that it came down to I literally used to look at myself in the mirror and just say, you're worth it. You're worthy. Go after it. You can do this. And I would, and it's funny when you're staring at yourself in the eyes and you're actually looking at yourself and you're doing the breath work and you're looking at yourself. There's this old saying, the eyes are the windows to the soul.
Yeah.
Like it's like it like fast forwards the programming thing. And then all of a sudden now you're operating at least at an emotional higher level, a mental higher level. And then I've found that encourages me to then go in and seek the physical higher level.
So how'd you break out of that, Stephen? How'd you go from this level of homelessness and kind of extreme negative mantras, being surrounded by that, and break through? What was some of the most pivotal things that happened?
I think my audience knows this already, but one of the most pivotal things that happened to me was I was very fortunate to meet a mentor who was my dad's employer. And he pulled me in his Jeep Grand Cherokee. I was a teenager at the time. And of course, my family had been struggling off and on my entire life. And inside of that Jeep, he said, what's the difference between a rich man and a poor man? And I was like, well, duh, money, of course, man, it was money. He's like, absolutely not. It's the way they think. The next question is what spurred the idea that there could be more, like the possibility or the curiosity, which was, do you want to think like me, or do you want to learn to think like your father? And this particular man was incredibly wealthy, incredibly generous. And he was, for some reason, he decided to take a 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid off a framing crew and put him in the Jeep to talk to me. And I later learned, now this is a number of years later, but I later learned that one of the reasons he did that was because apparently he saw himself in me because someone had done it for him.
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying? So, I'm a big believer that the greatest purpose in life is serving the person you used to be, that we all find our calling kind of hidden in that zone.
Yeah.
And ultimately that was the catalyst to say, okay, there might be something more. And then that might be something more turned into how to win friends and influence people. And then that turned into hung by the tongue. Right. And then that turned into meeting another mentor. And then, now I've had the pleasure and honor of being mentored by some of the most amazing people on the planet. And many of them don't even have platforms. Like there's several that I get mentored by even now that I would choose their mentorship over people, some that have established platforms. I've also got people that are mentoring me now that have established platforms. At the end of the day, like your work specifically, I think optimal life performance is a choice.
Yeah.
Right. They can either choose the path and choose to take on the wisdom that you've been sharing all day today, identify it and use it. And, one of the best ways I know that they can take advantage of that, and I would encourage anyone listening or watching to follow your programs, is to possibly look into your mastermind group that you got cooking. Talk to me a little bit about the mastermind that you got cooking right now.
Sure. Yeah. We teach people there's 11 different crucial things that should happen during exercise training that most people don't realize. And if you learn these 11 things, what I call, it's kind of technical, but the 11 crucial motor control factors, 11 different things of how to keep your body in alignment during training. So we start with that. We do a bunch of mindfulness and mindset training along the lines of what we talked about here today. And then we actually teach our clients how to biomechanically optimize their body during training. So instead of just going out and like lifting more weights and doing random different exercises, we actually teach you based on a million different case studies of meta-analysis and the mechanical function of the body. We teach how to align and optimize your mechanical function of your body during exercise, and which then leads into higher performance levels of training and endurance and strength. And now you're mechanically functional. Because see, the thing is oftentimes when you do exercise, what will happen is the joints get a little misaligned and you start to lose the force through the joint going into what's called shear stress. So the short joint kind of starts to grind. And then the execution of the force to the bar, to the platform, to the ground, you start to lose the strength and it goes into the joint. So we teach clients how not to let that happen. And then what we do is we take clients through a guided process of analyzing all of their body's major mobility ranges of motion, so that they can find out exactly where their unique body is misaligned and show them on how to align their. So now mechanically and strength wise, we're aligning them. Mobility wise, we're aligning them. We give them mastermind meetings and meetups. We have a bunch of doctors actually in our program now. And it's an amazing system because they learn all these things. We do guided sessions. So they come online with us and we guide them through the sessions. They're doing the training from the privacy of their own home. They don't have to go to the gym or anything.
So it's really good for people that especially, or maybe a little self-conscious right now. This is a great tool, resource.
Yeah, perfect for COVID time period. And, haven't been to the gym for a while and like they want to do something amazing, get the right start. So and what's really cool is we start our system for 2 weeks. So we have like waiting groups, so to speak. And like every about 6 weeks, we'll do a 2-week free program.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so they can jump into the program, get the full education, start for free before they would actually decide if they wanted to go forward or not. So,
what I've discovered is in order to those that will allow you to test drive something for free often actually have the thing that works.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's those that don't want you to test drive it. They just want you to pay the money and whatever. It's oftentimes that's the stuff that doesn't work. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so in love with what you're doing. I think that a number of people need it all over the place. I'm grateful that you accepted the call because the amount of research that you've put in and the time and energy that you've put in is, to me, nothing short of miraculous. I mean, there's a ton of information and just aligning these things, putting these 11 pieces together to say step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And I feel like the step-by-step approach is what's missing from the marketplace. Like everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's got their own starting point. Everybody's got their own, various traumas, maybe they got a bad elbow right now or a knee that's giving them fits or whatever. And it's so good to see a program that actually takes the human, right? The person into consideration without trying to force fit them into a mold. And I love the way you and your team do that, and you do it with excellence. And from me to you, I'm grateful that you guys put this together. Right. I know spots are limited. I know you guys don't, it fills up really fast, but if people from our audience want to check out and find out more about that, where would they go?
You can go to fitnessdoctor.com. So go to fitnessdoctor.com. You can find out more about our systems. You can message us from there, and that's a great place to start.
Rock on, dude. Well, dude, I'm loving it. I got a couple more questions for you before we wrap up, if it's all right. I know I'm gonna take one other minute from you if I can.
If I can share with you really quickly.
Come on. Yeah, we're buddies now. Let's roll.
All right. So here's another thing I didn't mention is that, this whole thing that we talked about in terms of beginner, intermediate, advanced, and like adaptation and perform, we actually have a very detailed process where we take in our clients' information and we figure that out for you.
Oh, that's so good.
And it has to do with how fit you were as a kid, which actually has a lot to do with how you should push yourself or not as an adult. How fit you've been over the last 18 months, your nutrition, your aerobic fitness scores, has to do with your sleep, your daytime energy, your stress. What's cool is that for like business owners and entrepreneurs, it's amazing because as your stress levels change and maybe your nutrition gets off or gets on, it's really doing better. The training plan, what we call our physiological dosage. In other words, how much effort you should do in different training zones per week changes to your exact lifestyle that week. So we have a tech that automatically adjusts and keeps telling you exactly what to do for each week. unique to your lifestyle. So we actually include that in our mastermind structure as well.
Dude, that is so freaking cool. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I was thinking about that earlier on the show. I was like, I said, I know I'm not a beginner, but am I intermediate or where am I at in the process? So I'm going to have to take you up on it myself, I think.
We'd love to have you, man.
Rock on. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question. And
Yeah.
I asked this to a lot of my guests that I believe that are having a meaningful impact on the world. And it's a question that's close to my heart. And the question is this: what is the legacy you're trying to leave behind?
Love. My legacy is love.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. Yeah. My legacy is love. Yeah. Yeah. I had kind of a rough upbringing, and, you know, I think that God's given me a gift to understand at a very, very, very deep, innate level what a human needs to have a thriving body and life, so that they're not plagued by the trauma and pain. And so, you know, the things that I've shared in terms of not how to push yourself, it really has to do with love. Because if you start your life and your exercise plan and everything you do with loving yourself, which is really what I'm helping people do, I'm teaching them how to love and take care of themselves. Because if you do that, guess what happens? You share more love with everyone else around you. And by doing that, you know, everything gets better. So that's,
I love that.
I'm even getting teary eyed here, man.
It's good. Well, that's what I mean. But people need
Yeah.
the real, man. People need the real
Yeah,
nowadays.
that's really it, man. Is sharing love like that. That's what it's about. And I hope everyone I want to give people a guaranteed foolproof way to make themselves amazing, and being able to make fitness and mindset fitness as well absorbable and foolproof. Like all they have to do is decide, and it's guaranteed that the results are going to happen. That's my legacy, is to leave that behind for the world, to have that greatness.
I love it, man. I love it. We're definitely kindred spirits. You know, we're doing it in different ways, and then I have a feeling we'll be joining forces and voices. I get you. We're gonna be joining both, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there was a study that was done during COVID that said about 97% of people in America that they surveyed would say that they're not really in love with who they are. In a variety of different ways. They're not
99%,
97% of people would say that there's in other words, they would find more wrong with themselves than more right with themselves. And they're the judge, right? We're our own self-critic. And the fact that your programs help people discover who they really are, like at an optimal level, I think it's beautiful. I really do.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Rock on, dude. Well, Robbie, man, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I love the conversation. And if you're okay with it, I'm going to have to get to our mutual friends. Like, dude, can Robbie come on about every 3 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, man. This has been a real pleasure.
Rock on. Well, let me ask you this. Where can anybody else find you?
Fitnessdoctor.com. That's the best place to find us and reach out. We have our 101 training systems there, and we have our newly launched mastermind structure, where it used to be about $1,500 a month to work with one of my professionals. I charge $4,000 a month to work with me directly. And now we have this mastermind structure, which is only around $400 a month. So,
oh gosh.
Yeah. So we can get like world-class level.
So what you're saying is people get direct access, but your CFO's mad at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, dude, thank you so much again for hanging out with us. I can't wait to do this again.
Me too, brother. Much love.
All right, take care. See ya.
See ya.
If you love that interview, go ahead and check out this next one right here.
Just existence sense that we need to feel like we're part of something bigger, because otherwise what's it all for?